feel like this is an intro to Saturday Night Live. All right.
I don't know what I'm
good.
expecting.
That's some good stuff right there. I don't know what the heck that was. But we are
Where
back.
did you get that?
I literally clicked on our intro song, but then Riverside was like, "You wanted this random one, right?"
That wasn't our intro song.
That was not our intro song at all. Like I literally had it queued
Well,
up.
I know that wasn't our intro song. I'm saying like you didn't intentionally put that in there.
No, Riverside has a bunch of pre-populated stuff. Here's our actual one. This is what you all came for. This is the vibe right here. Whatever that first one was, that
vibing out the beginning.
We're vibing. Now you have to just listen and watch.
Rivers pull me under. Binary stars begin to whisper. Lines of code like midnight thunder. Call my name through shifting mirrors.
This one's definitely the one that you vibe out to.
100%. Don't know what that other one was. Feel alive.
All right, we've already killed our time. Phase it out.
All right. Fine. We're done. Thanks, Riverside, for ruining our intro. We were totally going to plan that out,
man.
And they just straight up sabotaged us. But it's okay. We can bounce. We can adapt and overcome. We will not be taken down.
Never. Not even once.
Maybe.
Not even once. But hello, back for episode number, what is it, 48?
46.
46. Man, time flies when you're having a good time.
Sure does. And it flies even when you're not, too, from what I've been finding out. We're having this conversation fairly recently, just like, dude, can you believe, let alone how far back high school was, but then looking back, college was almost 10 years ago. That
it's not super fun
scary
to think about, but it is. Yeah, it's one of those things that exists in the back of my mind pretty aggressively. 10 years ago, and you never really thought, well, I mean, almost 10 years ago, but you did not expect life to look like it does now. And whether that's a good or a bad thing, you know, it is what it is. But it's always interesting to look back to that person you were when you were 10 years ago in college, getting out, thinking you're going to do X, Y, and Z, end up doing this, transition into this. Now you're running a podcast that has millions of followers. That's not us, but you know, it's someone out there. And
we can dream.
Yeah, we can dream. But no, I was talking to someone about this the other day. I was like, you know, it's funny when people say time flies when you're having a good time. It's like, whether you're having a good or a bad time, time actually takes the exact same amount of time.
Yep.
It goes at the exact same speed no matter what. So, and that's actually not true around extremely large objects, which do distort time. Time actually moves slower around extremely large objects, but I don't consider us compared to the size of the universe to be extremely large. I could make such a funny joke with that, but I'm not going to on the podcast.
There we go. We'll save that. DM us if you want to hear it. Maybe. Or we just won't. Either way. Yeah. Without getting into much the nitty gritty stuff like the whole interstellar talk, where theories of relativity and passage of time depends on where you're at and how big of an object you're literally on or in or around. We can get into that conversation too, a whole nother time. But we did promise you guys a little bit of the crazy conspiracy extravaganza talk. We ended last episode talking about some interesting Lockheed Martin supposed like top secret program, black weapons programs, or things that they've been working on behind the scenes for probably a very long time, and stuff that the general public, not like we're any more attuned than the general public is, or no sort of top secret security clearance on our side. But we can theorize, we can speculate, and we love to talk about this stuff. So we do not have the inside scoop, contrary to popular belief, but we do have the ability to talk about this stuff on a podcast. And that is exactly what we're going to do today on episode 46. So welcome back to the next episode pretty much of Conspiracy Extravaganza.
Yes, we've actually, one of the things that we had hinted at last time that we've done a good bit of research on since we talked is the Lockheed. Lockheed came out with not came out with, that's a really bad way to say it, but they had, and who knows where this recording came from. But I think it might have even been all the way back in 2016 is when this recording was taken, because, we had looked into it, and at least the patent for this type of technology, which would be a coherent matter wave beam, was filed and I believe, given into Lockheed in 2016. So they've been at least looking into this type of stuff since 2016. I mean, just off the top of your head, what do you think a coherent matter beam sounds like? Matter wave beam sounds like?
Literally manipulating matter into a specific directed pathway to use as a legitimate weapon.
That is pretty much exactly it. that's I was hoping you were gonna like speculate a little bit and say it sounds like something sci-fi, but that really is exactly what a coherent matter wave beam is. A regular. And again, this is from a Zoom recording, and then we saw it on a public post where someone had said, if they've been talking about this, if they're talking about this, then imagine what they have behind the scenes with things they've actually found in regards to things like this. And the Zoom recording was a guy presenting a slide showing how a coherent matter wave beam could work. And essentially, it's a regular laser is a beam of photons, which are synchronized so the wave peaks line up. A matter wave beam is proposing a beam of particles that have mass. So just like you said, actual matter that would synchronize up, but their quantum wave phase is synchronized, so the particles behave more like a single organized beam instead of a messy spray. And Lockheed's patent literally frames this as a massive counterpart to lasers and says the key challenge is changing particle phase without changing particle energy, which I am sure that everyone is extremely familiar with.
Very much so. I'm just glad you said it, because I didn't want to sound too cocky, because I know exactly what that is.
Exactly. I mean, particle phase and particle energy. I mean, from what I can understand, this would be essentially taking as much not even a lot, just like anything that's an atom or something that has matter, and concentrating it into a beam. But I mean, what do you think that something like that could ever be used as a weapon?
I'm sure it could, but I would be curious on a scale of practicality what it would take to be able to use something like that. If the utility behind it to make it work actually substantiates the ability to use it in the first place. Because I know before we hopped on earlier today, we were talking about that Zeus laser that, I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty details, but one of the most powerful lasers that we have developed as a human race, supposedly. Don't quote me, but information out there, go look it up. Really interesting stuff. Like, we have the ability to be able to utilize the world's most powerful laser, but it also uses an insane amount of power to even be able to power up and shoot a quick blip for 1 second. So it's like the practicality and the utility behind it just were not there to be able to support something like that. So I think it'd be cool if it was functional, but at the same time, how substantial is it to actually use something like that, pending what it takes to actually, power it in the first place?
Well, I mean, let's say all systems were perfect. Do you think that it would be an effective weapon?
I feel like it would, because if you're able to literally hone in matter in a specific, like, quantifiable area, region, or whatever it is, I feel like you could completely I mean, you could do a lot of damage without doing a lot of actual physical damage. I mean, you're talking like almost like an like I would imagine it like almost like an EMP, where you go and you drop an EMP in a specific area and it wipes out every single piece of electronic equipment in that specific area, right? Rendering it completely useless. If you could do that with a matter wave beam or a laser or something like that, I mean, all bets are off, because at that point, it doesn't matter if you're shooting it through walls, doesn't matter if you're potentially deep underground, you can still tap in and reach whatever is, buried underneath the ground in a vault to try to wipe that thing out. As I almost throw my mic off the prop here.
I mean, I would say that from the research I did or tried to do was that it honestly, as much as a matter wave beam sounds really cool, it doesn't have much practicality as a weapon, because it would just be, I mean, you'd have to charge the not charged, you'd have to get the matter moving close to the speed of light, which would then, I mean, as it hits something, it would cause a lot of kinetic energy, but it would be more of like it's not like going to hit you and vaporize you at once or anything of the sort. So it's like, hold on. So in regards to, putting that into real use, the other part that it was, bringing up a lot is that it would take an insane amount of energy to not only create the beam, but to also keep it from scattering as soon as it touched other matter. Like, you wouldn't be able to shoot the beam into the atmosphere. You'd be able, it'd be much more realistic for space, if anything, because space has such a vacuum to it, but you would not, and it doesn't have an atmosphere or anything like that, but as soon as like the particles touch the atmosphere, they would essentially all scatter, just because they'd be interacting with other matter and hitting it, at high speeds. Or they, might cause a disruption in and of itself, like some type of, I wouldn't say explosion, but I mean, I guess if matter was hitting that fast close to the speed of light, like it does in the what is that big the CERN, where they send matter around a circle close to the speed of light and make it collide to study different effects of exotic matter, or to study different types of exotic matter, and see how closely they can get to like what things were like after the Big Bang, what happens when you do X, Y, and Z. But essentially, what makes it coherent at the end of the day is all the waves are lined up in sync. So like, imagine 100 people jumping on a trampoline. If they jump randomly, the surface is chaotic. Energy spreads out. If they all jump at the same time, the trampoline bounces much higher. Energy stacks. That's coherence. In a laser, all light waves are in sync. That's why lasers are tight and more powerful. A coherent matter wave beam would try to do the same thing, line up the wave timing of particles so they act like one organized wave. So what is actually Lockheed trying to do with this? The concept behind the slide that we had, looked at and talked about was create many tiny particle streams, synchronize their wave timing, which is the phase, combine them into one organized beam, and keep all particles moving at the same energy, and then prevent them from interfering destructively. Essentially, that would just say turn a messy spray of particles into a laser-like stream of synchronized particles. Now, why that is extremely hard, particles are not photons. They actually, carry mass. So, photons, like I said, don't have any mass, they don't repel each other, and they travel very easily through air. Particles, which have mass, collide with air molecules. They repel each other if they're charged, they spread out, and they lose alignment very easily. So what would it actually look like in real practice? Unfortunately, not like a Star Wars Death Tractor beam, but more like a invisible stream of extremely tiny particles, possibly faintly glowing if it ionizes the air around it, and visible mainly at the impact point. It wouldn't look like a solid light blade or anything of the sort. It would be more of as it interacted with something and hit it, you would then see the reaction from what was ever happening. So is it, a crazy concept? No, it's not. A lot of it's based on the real physics part, being that matter waves exist, coherence exists, particle beams exist, quantum phase manipulation does exist. The hard part is just scaling it. It's high power, long distance, or in terms of if you wanted to scale it into high power, long distance, or a stable operation in the atmosphere. So at the end of the day, it's really more applicable towards maybe if you were doing if you were building something at the atomic level, and you could, take all the atoms and structure them to, you know, put them in some type of structure, through a beam or something of the sort. Or think of like if you were putting on paint onto something, but you wanted to, like spray paint, but you wanted to, use atoms to do that same thing. So I don't think, unfortunately, this one probably is not going to be tied back to any weapons that they're currently working on. It would be, if you could have a way to contain the beam of particles that could transfer through the air, I mean, it could technically be used as some type of weapon. I just don't know how effective it would actually be.
That's what I was wondering, because I mean, if you're shooting something at the speed of light, I mean, what kind of destruction could that cause? I mean, are we talking like, is this a massive scale warfare type thing? Where you're shooting this laser beam at something, or could they hone it to where it wouldn't be as massively catastrophic as like a nuclear bomb or an atomic bomb?
I mean, from what I can see, it could exist as a weapon, but it would be used as like a missile defense system or something of the sort in space. But on Earth, it's probably, very unlikely to outperform lasers or missiles or something of the sort. But I mean, any bit of matter traveling at the speed of light is eventually, I mean, as it hits something, it's going to have catastrophic effects, even if it's at a atomic level, which is, if you got hit with a bunch of matter traveling in a single beam at the speed of light, it's definitely going to have an effect on you.
It'll do
it's going to do something at the end of the day. So, I mean, the bottom line is, a matter wave beam is not impossible in principle, physically plausible in a vacuum, extremely impractical in the atmosphere, and far less efficient than a laser system today. It's much closer to like a niche space defense concept if it were ever to be used as a weapon versus, any type of sci-fi weapon that we could mount on something or utilize here on Earth.
Yeah. Sounds great in theory. Sounds really cool, but not practical. It's basically
not
what
at all.
we're getting at. Yeah.
So, unfortunately, what they were showing, I don't think was actually going to be tied back to any black weapons, or how would you say it, black project weapons that they're working on, just because it's just not a realistic application here on Earth yet. But let's just see kind of what it would look like if it was used on Earth as a weapon.
Hopefully lightsabers. That's what we're trying to get at. Just a controlled, harnessed beam of plasma where we harness matter to destroy and melt things with a lightsaber. I think that would be the ultimate end goal.
If anyone can create lightsabers, I mean, they're going to be hands down. I mean, we've created stuff that resembles lightsabers, that can be held, but they're hooked up to extremely high energy output systems that, and they burn extremely, and you can't really make a solid blade with the energy that's required. You'd have to have some type of containment mechanism, and that would keep you, you can't, they lightsabers today, at least what we've tried to make, cannot be made in the way that they could be fought with using swords or as swords. So let's see. If a particle matter base beam were used on Earth, it would not look like a Star Wars blaster. It would be mostly invisible. Most of the visible effects would happen at the impact point, not the whole beam path. So, specific kind of what we had just said.
You just see the aftermath.
Yeah. You would not see the beam itself. It would either be very faint or you wouldn't see it. You'd only see something if the beam was energetic enough to ionize air, it created a plasma trail, or it was intense enough to heat air molecules visibly. So what happens in air? The particles collide with air molecules constantly. This would cause scattering, air heating, ionization, possibly small crackling or ozone smell. If powerful enough, it might briefly resemble a narrow lightning-like discharge, faint plasma channel, or even just an invisible path until it hits something. The impact is, I guess, this is where the most visible effects would occur. When high energy particles hit a target, they deposit energy inside it. This could cause sudden localized heating, bright flash at impact, sparks, probably material vaporization. Possibly material vaporization, surface ablation, material peeling away. It might resemble a very concentrated welding arc or a tiny explosive flash, not a cinematic beam slicing across the sky. If the beam were intense enough, you might see smoke, molten metal, glowing spot forming. What it would sound like: faint crackling, a sharp pop at impact, or a short electrical snap. Would it be visible over a distance? In clean air, pop probably barely visible, much less visible than a laser in fog. If it were extremely powerful, if we somehow scaled beyond our current tech, you might see a bright plasma filament, a flash at origin and impact, rapid material destruction at the strike point, possibly shockwave if enough energy was dumped quickly. But again, this would still look more like an intense electrical arc, not a solid sci-fi beam. But the real big limiting factor is going to be the atmosphere is going to ruin the particle beam. So at the end of the day, even if it were fired on Earth and it worked, it'd be mostly invisible, and a sudden bright flash wherever it hits, which is just going to cause a lot of localized burning or melting. So it'd kind of be like a, if you were to bring bring a blowtorch to something, or like a welding torch that heats something up, but at a much higher speed, I'm sure it would kill you.
I would imagine.
I mean, that would be the obviously you wouldn't want anyone to get killed by a particle wave beam, but at the or a matter wave beam, whatever we called it. But if it were turned into a weapon, then it would be dangerous definitely some extent. But again, it's going to be more used for building something at an atomic level.
Yeah, absolutely. And that reminds me, I mean, just all the interesting stuff kind of tying into our conversation earlier, that a lot of these defense contractors are prone to file patents on more so theories than anything, without actually proving that they can do it, just so they can basically retain the right or the ownership of it, i.e. Lockheed Martin filing that supposed patent on this type of weaponry. And it just reminds me of some other stuff that, I mean, we've seen over the years, just kind of the stuff that Lockheed's been working on. And I'm sure at this point, other defense contractors too, specifically when it comes to aircraft, where it's like the smart skin and the shape changing, or morphing aircraft that they're working on, kind of resembling like, UFOs, UAPs, all of a sudden these guys seeing orbs in the air, they're spheres, but all of a sudden they transform into a triangle. interesting technology that Lockheed's kind of been developing, supposedly, allegedly, I will say, not for sure. But two main facets of this technology are basically the smart skin or the living nervous system skin, where it's basically a concept where thousands of tiny micro sensors are embedded or sprayed onto an aircraft's outer surface, where these sensors have their own power. They communicate wirelessly or via software networks and let the plane feel, quote unquote, wind speed, temperature, strain, any sort of damage, or any sort of stress in real time, similar to that of human skin, sending signals to the brain, which then enables self-monitoring, any protective maintenance, honestly causing the reduction of ground inspections further after missions. The skin essentially becomes a distributed sensor network with integrated processing data. And supposedly Lockheed has discussed, and this goes back to 2012 to 2014, growing or fabricating aircraft skin that integrates sensors, energy storage, and data/power conduction directly through the material itself with no traditional wiring. The structure acts like an actual nervous system where data flows through it, sensors are everywhere, and it eliminates thousands of wiring failure points. And all that to say, it's literally described as a living aircraft skin that conducts power and data internally. Pairing that with the ability of the whole shape changing and morphing capability, there's shape memory alloys, again, allegedly, where polymers blend, twist, or stretch when heated and return to their original form. These replace heavy hydraulics, actuators, and the wings or control surfaces. And where Lockheed Martin is actually testing folding wing designs with flexible, stretchable skins made of shape memory polymers, where wings could basically change geometrically in flight for different speeds or conditions. And then going further into that, the aspect of, again, if it's a drone, a circular drone, that could morph into a triangular type object. So there's some really, really wild stuff that sounds super sci-fi and future oriented, but I mean, stuff like this is, again, allegedly they're working on stuff like this. So I find that really, really wild.
Well, the smart skin isn't just being worked on smart skin in terms of, that's a medical concept. That's that's an aircraft concept. I mean, I think that's, if you want to tie it back to anything that, whether you want to call it a conspiracy or if you believe that, we actually have downed alien technology that they've talked about in regards to the skin of these different types of crafts being able to morph at will, or, exactly like you had said, skin that has a constant data flow that's reacting to the environment around it, that is, getting bigger or smaller based on temperature or, electromagnetic feedback, whatever it might be. And it has the ability to essentially put itself in the best possible position, whether it's trying to utilize stealth or it's trying to utilize maneuverability, whatever it might be, heat control. So it's not too far off from, well, I mean, I don't know if you would even say too far off. It's not that technology in and of itself, even if you want to go down to, like, let's say it's a, smart skin for, your actual skin. They actually have, what's called electronic skin. It's thin, flexible sensor layers embedded with stretchable circuits. The circuits can detect pressure, temperature, strain, vibration. It's used in robotics, prosthetics, structural monitoring. It's very real, already functioning. And like you said, there's shape memory materials or morphing wing surfaces that, instead of hinge flaps, mechanical control surfaces, researchers are building smooth, flexible trailing edges, shape adjusting wing camber, continuous curvature changes, and that causes less drag, less radar reflection from gaps, improved fuel efficiency, reduced noises, and the last one on here is adaptive metamaterials, which I think is more of what you're getting into and what we're getting into in terms of what they could be working on, being that metamaterials are engineered materials that manipulate electromagnetic waves, alter radar reflectivity, adjust surface EM properties, and some research aims to dynamically alter radar signature or modify reflectivity in real time. This is stealth evolution, though, not like actual invisibility. And then again, we get down to smart skin on aircraft with realistic military implications. So adaptive aerodynamics, embedded structural monitoring. So that's, detects micro cracks, senses stress changes, monitors fatigue, reports damage instantly. This is already in development. That's confirmed. Radar signature tuning. Instead of a static stealth shaping, surface could subtly shift reflectivity, adjust angle of microstructures, modify how EM waves scatter, not invisibility, but dynamic stealth optimization, and then thermal signature control. So future surfaces might be able to redistribute heat, actively cool specific zones, and reduce infrared visibility. So at the end of the day, a lot of this stuff is being worked on, and I guess what we're getting at is we don't know exactly where it's at as a finished product. And I think that, given, for instance, what is it, the F-47? Is that what it was called?
The new fighter,
The
6th
plane?
gen.
Yeah.
Yep.
6th gen fighter that's been up in orbit for the past.
That's different. That's F-47's different from the.
Okay, which one am I thinking of? FX or 47?
It's the X-37B.
So that's a plane that's been up in orbit since for 5 years. And obviously no one had any idea that we had a weapons capable. I believe it's weapons capable, correct?
I don't think it's weapons capable. It was.
All right, I'm glad I caught myself there.
I think allegedly up there for research purposes.
I don't think that the government is going to tell us everything that they want to about a
But they're
plane.
so transparent with everything.
That is true. They do have a really good record of being super transparent with about anything that they talk about. But what was I going to say? Yeah, if that thing has been up there for 5 years in orbit, and that thing can, I do remember reading one thing about that, saying that it has the ability to do quantum detection. Which I essentially, from what I could understand, that's being able to detect changes at a quantum level. So, it also doesn't need satellites for 3D, for not 3D, for what would you call it? For GPS. I believe it can use like different data points to make sure it understands where it's at all times, so it's not dependent on satellites or any other type of technology. I mean, that thing in and of itself, all I'm saying is, in terms of what we're talking about, the skin, I guarantee you there is some developed aircraft skin that would resemble some type of sci-fi application or result in terms of what aircraft can do, or what they're looking at putting onto aircraft. So yeah, just with everything that's being worked on, I would guess to say that there's some pretty crazy stuff that's been achieved behind the closed doors.
Absolutely. Well, and I'm just referencing the 6th gen fighter that Trump announced within the last year, the F-47. Like, that's going to be a technological feat when it comes to a fighter and aircraft and all that. I mean, if it was anything like the F-35, they're working on this stuff for years and years and years and years and years in advance before they remotely ever tell us anything. So all that to say, the next turn or the next aircraft up is the F-47. just imagine what is above and beyond the F-47 that they're working on. Stuff that I think would partially be mind melting, stuff that we could imagine, but we couldn't perceive that we'd be able to actually pull something like that off. Whatever it is, I think we would partially have our minds melted if we actually knew the stuff that was actually being worked on.
And that's the, and you got to mix that stuff. I mean, one thing that we wanted to talk about, this time as well, relative to, there's even videos today of, drones that they were testing in the past that were stable drones that had engines on all sides that essentially had sensors that could keep it completely stable midair, which is something that's been, extremely elusive and very hard to do with any type of aircraft, even a helicopter. But, you got to mix things like that with, other things we know about, like the Nazi Bell experiment, which is, it was called the Die Glocke, the bell. It's described as a large bell-shaped metallic device, roughly 2 to 3 meters tall, containing 2 counter-rotating cylinders filled with a mysterious substance called serum 525, surrounded by ceramic insulation. According to the story, when activated, it produced a violet glow, emitted radiation-like effects, killed or sickened scientists nearby, caused plant-animal tissue damage, possibly generated anti-gravity, possibly distorted time, and some versions escalate to time travel, interdimensional portals, reverse engineered alien propulsion. But obviously that's a lot at once. We're not saying any of that is true, but there has been things that did have real stories tying back to them, that if anything about those stories was true, in terms of the stuff that might be more speculative, then that really points to, because after World War II, we got all their scientists essentially, or all their main ones. So if anyone was working on, von Braun built the Saturn rocket. He was a Nazi. That's always blown my mind. He was a straight up part of the party Nazi. And that dude got to live out his life in the US because we were like, hey, now that this war's over, we'd really want to beat Russia in the space race, and we need your help with that. But when you have things like that in the background of like, and that no government has ever been completely honest with everything that it's found out. So it's like, I guess your mind just kind of plays games with how far have things gone. I personally think gravity propulsion is something that we have technology for. I think it is. I think there's a lot of evidence based on the way, and this is even goes to, my stepfather. I'm not going to say his name, but, he works, he was an A-10 pilot and has seen things in the A-10 that defied all known physics. I remember when we were in the hot tub talking about that story about, objects shooting off at what looked like to be, mock Jesus. And he said the fact that there's no sound, there's no nothing. And guess where this was around? Area 51.
No.
Yeah, no, that's real. We have that actual, like, that's and this guy is, trust me, I've tried to describe to I hate this camera so much. I've tried to describe to him the fourth dimension, and his um theory on stuff like that is, if I can't utilize it or it's not practical, I don't care, and it doesn't matter. It's like he is the one guy in the world that you can almost not get to believe that there's anything outside of what there is and what we see. He's impossible to try to walk that path with. But even him, when he saw something that resembled gravity propulsion, he could not explain what it was, and that was years ago. So I would say that I think we do have gravity propulsion. But is there anything else you wanted to share? I've got some more stuff about the Nazi bell, if you wanted me to keep going, but if you wanted to share it.
No, yeah, I don't have anything really to add about gravity propulsion. I agree. I think it is something that I think we've been studying and working on it for a very long time now. And yeah, I mean, and it's the frustration behind it to where it's the funny thing of like, not everyone, but a lot of people out there, especially in today's time, the year 2026, would probably tend to believe that we have something like that, but they still deny that they have it. And they're like, we don't know what you're talking about. We can neither confirm nor deny. But it's just the annoyance and the frustration behind it. It's like, come on, man. Everyone for the most part wouldn't doubt that being a thing now, but yet you still kind of downplay it. I'm waiting, I think like we all are, for something to come out to just be like, guess what? It's real, and not this song and dance anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it will come out at the right time. Not the right time. I mean, whenever it's most convenient for them to allow it to come out. But I wanted to include, where the Nazi Bell story comes from. So, I mean, this is important. The Die Glocke narrative comes primarily from Igor Witkowski, a Polish journalist, later popularized by Nick Cook, The Hunt for 0 Point. Witkowski claimed he saw interrogation transcripts of SS officer Jacob Sporenberg. Those transcripts mentioned a mysterious project. He was not allowed to copy them. There's no publicly verified copy of those transcripts, and that's probably the biggest issue. There are no declassified German technical documents confirming the Bell, no confirmed blueprints, no verified lab logs, no confirmed recovered device. Everything traces back to secondary claims. And then there is the henge structure, which is still, you can go see it today. I believe that, there's a circular concrete structure near the Wenceslaus mine in Poland. And some claim it was a test stand for the Bell. It anchored the device during experiments. Skeptics argue, though, it was an industrial structure, possibly cooling tower base or support frame. There's no confirmed tied to exotic research. No confirmed engineering drawings connect the structure to a gravity device. But here's the thing that I hate. Of course, there's no confirmed documents around any of this stuff. If there was, guess who it wouldn't be shared with? Or guess what wouldn't happen? It wouldn't be shared with us, and it wouldn't get out.
Mm-hmm.
And if there was any value in keeping it, it would be kept under wraps. So it's just like, it's that plausible deniability of I can neither confirm nor deny, something like that. I don't understand there's the structure
The henge.
that apparently held the Bell in place while it was being tested on and whatnot.
Interesting. It's just kind of out there in the open. That's really eerie, kind of.
So, I mean, yeah, at the end of the day, I really do believe that I don't necessarily know what I believe, but I'm just saying that in terms of something like the Nazi Bell, and when you mix that with things we were already talking about, if there was research that did get done and there was something to take from that research, and we won the war, and we went in and we found whatever that was, then I don't think that we would have ever shared that with the public, or that we would be even sharing that with the public now. If there's anything that came from it, it would be behind lock and key, and you have to mix that with whatever experimentation is going on now, even though it's probably very compartmentalized, and think if those two things, if one is real, have mixed in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the general consensus is there's so much out there that we just have no idea. And not to go off on a random tangent, but it's like the Library of Alexandria. All of that recorded history that was just wiped out and destroyed. I mean, just almost kind of a complete blank slate when it comes to anything and everything that happened before a specified period of time. We'll just never know, unfortunately.
Yeah, that is, I would say it's one of the most painful things that ever happened in history, is the Library of Alexandria. The amount of ancient knowledge that got burned down with that. And that's probably when they realized they should make copies of stuff.
Be like, it's probably a good idea to do. Hindsight being 2020.
I guess we do today. We make digital copies, but I'm just trying to see if there's anything more on this Nazi bell.
Did they say whatever, I mean, if it was a thing, whatever happened to it? Did the Nazis destroy it as they started losing the war? Presumably.
I mean, well, this is why the myth persisted, apparently, is, there's several factors that amplified it. Nazi programs were genuinely secret and advanced. Operation Paperclip moved scientists to the U.S., which is what we were referencing. Some wartime facilities were destroyed. Cold War secrecy fed speculation, and UFO culture merged with Nazi wonder weapon stories, which is, what they called them, wonder weapons. It became a narrative bridge between Nazi science, UFO myths, and secret space programs. So, I mean, there was, let me see. There's probably at least something we can verify in regards to the Nazi bell. So there's no verified physical or documentary evidence that a device called Die Glocke existed in a way it's described in conspiracy literature. Again, the primary source was Igor Witkowski's claim. He claimed he saw the interrogation transcripts of SS General Jacob Sporenberg. The transcript allegedly mentioned a secret device. He's not allowed to copy them. They did conduct rocket propulsion, jet aircraft development, heavy water nuclear experiments, centrifuge work. These programs were secret, dangerous, advanced for their time. Claims of serum 525, the mysterious substance serum 525, is often described as metallic liquid, possibly mercury-based, which I've heard before, possibly radioactive. There is no verified chemical record, no lab sample, no German technical record listing such a compound, and then no surviving hardware. For comparison, V2 rockets, surviving parts, blueprints, engineers, jet engines, recovered hardware. Die Glocke has no surviving device, no blueprints, no confirmed engineer testimony, no recovered fragments, no wartime lab records referencing it directly. Historians' position. Mainstream World War II historians generally classify Die Glocke as a post-war myth based on unverified claims, expanded through popular books, mixed with Nazi occult lore. The most verifiable elements are that there was, underground structures. The circular concrete hinge structure exists. Nazi Germany ran secret advanced weapons programs. Igor Witkowski published claims about transcripts. So that's pretty much all of the verifiable evidence behind it. But again,
yeah,
if it was ever found, it wouldn't be talked about anyways.
Well, and I will say, just to kind of add on to that and add a little very, very interesting thing I was just thinking about as you were reading that. It says, in the end, it is suggested that all of the scientists that worked on this project either died from the device itself or were killed in order for the secret to not get out. Little is known of Die Glocke after the fall of the Nazis, but there are several theories, including that it was moved to South America or that it was moved to the U.S. as part of a deal made with SS General Kammler. However, the most interesting theory is the Kecksburg UFO incident. On December 9th, 1965, there were reports by thousands of people of an object flying over several states and crash landing in Kecksburg, Pennsylvania. Local authorities described the object as being as big as a car and acorn, bell-shaped. Later, the Army arrived, cleared the area, and then denied any knowledge of the event. It is important to remember that in 1965, a former Nazi scientist was heading up components of the U.S. space program, and that scientist has ties to research in Germany that could be associated with Die Glocke. One more thing. So, as you were mentioning, Zerum 525, that purplish looking serum liquid stuff that supposedly powered this Nazi weapon, I was like, what if that was element 115 that was later described as Bob Lazar? And I just started Googling just out of curiosity, and it landed me on this. In Call of Duty, Call of Duty Zombies, element 115 is the substance that creates the wonder weapons and all that inside Call of Duty Zombies. It was found in a meteor and has a purple color to it. So it's funny that Call of Duty was even kind of doing a play on maybe element 115 is Zerum 525. And that was tied to,
crazy part
like
is
I said,
like,
Die Glocke.
But apparently mercury has been tied to, hold on. So I guess that came from the Nazi Bell story, post-war UFO occult narratives. Mercury in real engineering is used for high voltage switches, gyroscopes, scientific experiments. It's conductive, it's liquid at room temperature, has high density, it responds strongly to magnetic fields. Does spinning mercury affect gravity? No, gravity is not influenced by spinning metal, magnetic fields, rotating fluids, electric current, plasma rotation. So I guess maybe it's, just a people associated with that, but there's been, what about magnetic fields plus mercury? Strong magnetic fields interacting with conductive fluids can create plasma effects, produce electromagnetic forces, generate strange visual phenomena, but those are electromagnetic effects, not gravitational. So that there's nothing that says mercury can be used for any type of gravity propulsion, but I have heard that before, in terms of heard that thrown around in the conversation. So
yeah, it's interesting.
Exotic matter with negative energy, extreme relativistic conditions if you actually wanted to alter gravity in a noticeable way. But we have proven that element 115 can exist.
Yep. Popped up on the periodic table like 20 years after.
That would be the exotic material that we would need.
Pretty interesting stuff.
So the real element 115, Moscovium, element 115 is real. It was first synthesized in 2003 by a Russian-American team at Joint Institute for Nuclear Research. It was officially added to the periodic table in 2016. Extremely heavily, it has atomic number 115, extremely heavy nucleus, artificially created in particle accelerators, exists for fractions of a second before decaying. It's not found naturally in stable amounts. Element 115 became popular because of Bob Lazar. Claimed the government had recovered alien craft, and essentially that was their fuel. So Lazar claimed that a stable isotope of element 115 exists. It can generate gravitational fields. It enables warp-like propulsion. What we know, the isotopes created last milliseconds, undergo radioactive today, cannot decay, cannot power anything, cannot generate gravity fields. The island of stability concept. Now, here's where real physics gets interesting. Nuclear physicists theorize there may exist an island of stability at very high atomic numbers where certain super heavy isotopes could last minutes, days, possibly longer. But none have been found yet, even if that does not imply gravity manipulation. Stability does not equal exotic force generation. Could element 115 generate gravity? No known physics support this. Gravity is caused by mass energy density, space-time curvature. Simply being heavy does not mean you can create controlled gravity fields. You can amplify gravitational forces. If you wanted gravity propulsion, you'd need astronomical mass, exotic negative energy, relativistic energy densities. But from what I remember, first off, it was said to never be able to exist, and then all of a sudden it starts to exist.
Yep. 20 years later.
It's not. Yeah. Second, it's not supposed to be able to be stable. And then we say there might be an island of stability for things like this. And I'm pretty sure that, the decaying of it, I'm not going to say it. I know I'm saying this wrong, but from what I could remember from, who was it? Bob Lazar talking about it, is he was saying that it did produce antimatter, which is the kind of the point of, why it was used as a fuel, or, some type of gravitational field. But it's beyond my ability to completely think through. I can only speculate. Obviously, we're not saying any of this is true, but I do think that there have been some definite things found out behind the scenes that we're not going to know about until we're deemed ready to know about. And with a lot of things that have been seen in the recent past, I think anti-gravity has probably been worked on more than we think.
Agreed. Absolutely. Yeah. Who would have thought Bob Lazar was at least somewhat right when it comes to element 115?
I think so.
As he was talking about it, 20 to 30 years before it ever got confirmed on the periodic table.
Yeah. I mean, like an insane amount of time.
It's ridiculous. But I know we are coming up towards the last couple minutes of our episode. Should we give him a bonus conspiracy just because?
What would that one be?
Project Rainbow. Or should we save that for another time?
Probably save that one. I'm going to take the last couple minutes just to shout out my beautiful dog, Bristol. You guys got to meet her last episode. And unfortunately, in between that episode and this one, she has moved on to the next life. And I just, for anyone that's out there willing to listen, she was my companion. She was my everything. I did that. A dog grew up with me in my 20s, made it all the way to my 30s with me, and it was really kind of the reason for my sanity along the way. So I would love to dedicate this episode to her and her memory. She made her one and only appearance on this podcast last time we had an episode. So please go back, take a look at it, a listen to it, and see her beautiful face. I miss the heck out of her, and that dog changed my life, and I hope she is in a better place now. I definitely believe that she is. But yeah, just wanted to take a second to call her out and how much I loved her, and dedicate this episode to her.
Absolutely. And we've got a clip getting ready to come up on all of our social media and YouTube and all that stuff of Bristol's official introduction to the podcast. So guys, definitely go check that out. She was awesome. She's part of the Thoughtify Army, quite literally the mascot of Thoughtify Army. And yeah, she will definitely be missed. And yeah, it's tough. It is a rough situation that everyone has to go through, no matter whether it's a cat or a dog or some sort of pet. And no matter how many times you go through it, it is equally as hard. And just one of the unfortunate parts of life.
Yeah, but she loved this podcast. She was a big listener. She was a big proponent of it, and calling her out on this podcast. She was always in the background, almost every episode. You actually might be able to see her in a good few episodes. She was always on this couch right behind me.
Oh, yeah.
But She was a big listener. Really enjoyed all the topics. She really tried to contribute afterwards and tell me what we should have talked about or ideas about it. And best dog in the world. I don't care what anybody else says. That dog was one of God's saving graces in my life. So shout out to her. Miss you, Bristol. Love you. And I hope you guys enjoyed the episode in general.
Absolutely. We're stoked to be back and sticking to a hopeful, consistent time frame. Every couple weeks, I think, is going to be our sweet spot, just because we do have full-time jobs and we do work. So we're trying to balance all that for you guys. But we're happy to be back. Episode 46, Conspiracy Extravaganza. I think this was part 2 or part 3. Either way, we're going to make this a consistent kind of fun series to do with the conspiracy stuff. You guys kind of like it. So, muchas gracias. Appreciate you guys tuning in, and we will catch you on episode 47. And enjoy the awesome music.
Love you guys. Hey. Shout out Bristol. Love you, baby girl.
Rest in peace, Bristol.
All right. Bristol May was her actual name. Bristol May Glocke.